Let's Talk About It is sponsored by Gulf Coast Advanced Dentistry with my main man, Dr. Adam Bino, where their mission is to provide comprehensive and customized care in a gentle manner. Gulf Coast Advanced Dentistry believes that whatever your dental needs may be, you will be treated with the highest quality dentistry available and with the most compassion, respect, care you deserve. No insurance? No problem. Go to drbenos.com, click on the no insurance link, and it will take you through the process. Let Gulf Coast Advanced Dentistry help you begin your journey to a healthy and beautiful smile. Gulf Coast Advanced Dentistry is located at 13691 Metro Parkway, Suite 250, Fort Myers, Florida. Zip code 33912. Phone number 239-768-5900. Contact us for any information.
How you doing? Okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Coach. Welcome to Big Dream Sports TV. My name is Andrew Layton, and as y'all can see, I have a great guy on tune with me, is Coach Sam Sirianni. What's going on, Coach?
Not too much, Andrew. Just like everybody else, trying to, you know, get through a tough situation, get the kids, in some kind of, condition as much as we can, so that based on what happens, the kids are eager to get going. So even in a limited capacity, it's nice to get them out there and get a little work in this summer.
Yes, sir. Well, Coach, I got to, a lot of people don't know this and don't realize that I'm up under the Coach Sam tree, your father's, because I was coached by Joe Hampton, who actually was coached up under Coach Sam. And it actually dawned on me when I came to the All-Star game and I was sitting in your office and, we were hanging out and you were welcoming us in there. And I was like, well, dang, I had so much animosity against Fort Myers because we were rivals. And I'm like, they taught me everything I know, really, and how was he, Coach? Because I've always been on the opposite side of him, never really had an opportunity to sit down and talk to him. How was he as a coach?
Well, going back to Coach Hampton, this will really probably date me as well. Coach Hampton, when he came to Fort Myers from Palatka,
yes,
he was my freshman football coach. So Coach Hampton came to Fort Myers, and he left a legendary coach in Palatka, a guy named Jimmy McCool, and him and his wife moved to Fort Myers, and someone told him to go over and see Coach Sam, and so Coach Hampton just happened to be my freshman year. He coached freshmen, and of course, it didn't take long for Coach Sam to see what a jewel Coach Hampton was going to be, and he went right up to varsity. And I was fortunate and blessed to coach with Coach Hampton for 2 years before Estero High School opened. Mm-hmm. So got to work. He coached me, and then I got to coach with him, and then of course, all the years through coaching and the FACA and FCA, and Coach Hampton became like a second brother to my father, and like a relative to me. He's been great, and got me into our, my dad and himself got me into the FACA, and kind of showed me the ropes and the things that that you need to do as a coach, the networking and giving back to your profession. And so I had some great mentors. But as far as Coach Sam went, I think the best compliment I could give him as a coach, things I was blessed to get to learn so many, being, of course, as my father. But I thought one of the things that he had two skills that I thought might have even, have been his, things that kind of separated him and his longevity was, one, he was a great people person. He could build a relationship. He was always very, very, very forthright, honest, but he did it in a way and could, I saw him take a lot of kids. He could get that trust factor built in very quickly. The second thing actually three things. The second thing from a coaching standpoint, he was old school. I mean, he grew up in a time when, the forward pass was was not thought as a good thing. But I watched him evolve over time. I watched him evolve in, he kept his principles of the things that he felt were important. I think all good coaches do that. But he also evolved with the times in terms of whether it was schematically or whether the ever-growing, changing environment for teams and the different roles that the coach had to fill. So I got to watch him from his, when I was really young as a water boy. He was a very intimidating figure, not just as my father, but at the same time, as he mellowed, as he aged, he always garnered respect, but he had a great way of adapting to the changing times. And the third thing, which really isn't as a football coach, he had a very big picture vision. I know in the 70s when we established our booster club, and in those days it was kind of in vogue that you would have just a quarterback club or a touchdown club of football boosters. And I remember Coach, he really, he coached other sports back when he started, but everybody obviously knew football was his love. But when he was the athletic director, he always had a vision of having a full sports program, and he didn't let us at Fort Myers. And he went through a lot of his best boosters, his best supporters, kind of, I don't want to say fought him on it, but didn't understand what he was thinking when he demanded an all sports booster club. And he always believed that, outside the box of just his little world in football. And always, and to this day, we have a great all sports booster club. He believed in that. He believed, obviously people thought he always bled green, but he built relationships with coaches and kids at other programs, and he was a big supporter of the whole of this area. You'll talk to people that got into the profession that said, your dad took the time to, when I was getting started, to show me the ropes and do things, to what would be considered rivals. So, he had a way of seeing the big picture and adapting, and he was a great communicator. And I think, as we're nothing more than we're teachers. And I think the greatest coaches will have those same values.
Right. Now, Coach, I sit back, and it's funny that you say all those great, wonderful things about your father. But when I came in, that's the same thing that I saw there when we came there for the All-Star game. Because, as a coach, especially first year, I taught myself to pay attention to a lot of stuff, and the respect and the light and the joy that the kids and the relationships that you had inside the locker room when we're inside the All-Star, you can tell, that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Coach, right now I'm second year coach. I'm looking for some great advice on building a program. You got so many wins. You went to the Super Bowl last year for all this great stuff, and we'll talk about that later. But how did you, continue but building, the Fort Myers program, after your father, when you took over?
Well, first of all, appreciate it, the kind words. I remember you as a player. We had a lot of sleepless nights those were some great games. People don't realize that the Fort Myers Estero rivalry, it was very special. Not just the fact that there was that 5, 6, 7 year run where we always played last and it always been, but it was very special. That what I liked about it, and I've been fortunate to be through a lot of rivalries, and some, become the Hatfields and the McCoys, but some have a different tone to them. And I think it was the relationship of Coach Sam and Coach Joe. And you got to remember, when Estero High School opened, it was almost like Fort Myers South, from Dr. Browder and Miss Logan and Miss Booker. And so Estero, the original culture built at Estero was a lot of the Fort Myers culture. It was the same people.
Right.
So it made that rivalry special. And I've been fortunate to be through. We have a great rivalry with an outside county team with Charlotte that has been in that mode. And I think we don't have enough of those. Listen, for 48 minutes, I'm sure, well, you know that that for 48 minutes, you wanted nothing more than to beat us and vice versa. And I know,
Right.
but if there's a respect in the rivalry, if we appreciate what each other is trying to accomplish, I think that's the best part of sports. That's what sometimes gets lost in some of these real blood bitter rivals that I think the life lessons and the things that you teach kids, lay it all out on the line, but it's still ultimately, you respect your opponent because they're working just as hard as you are. And it's easy to be on the winning side of something. So, good or bad, win or lose, it's easy to be a good winner, but you need to also, you're going to have way more pitfalls in life. So you need to learn to be a good loser. I know when we lost big games with the Stero, and it was a shock to our kids, but we regrouped. I know in '98, we won the district, and Coach
Yep.
I think his greatest accomplishment was being able to take a group of guys, in a I remember we had a slugfest, like 7-0.
Yeah, it was.
or actually that was the year. Actually, it was the year we had
That was a 3-way tie. Yep.
So to pick up, get through it, pick up your bootstraps, and then to make the run you guys made was, great testament to the belief and the things he instilled in y'all. So,
and the funny thing, Coach, I don't mean to cut you off, but a lot of people don't know through that process, Coach Sam and Coach Hampton were helping each other with film.
Absolutely.
And
I can remember everybody, that's been around a long time here probably knows of our early 90s teams with Jamie German and Rod Garrison and Keith Drayton. Our infamous battles with St. Thomas. Well, I know in 91 and 92, we played 2 state semifinals, and on the Saturday morning going in to that game, Coach Hampton and Coach Weber had done all the pre-scouting of St. Thomas and came in and met with us. And then in 98, after we lost to St. Thomas, the next week I went over to the St. Thomas Lakeland game, and I met with Coach Hampton, Coach Swatz, Coach Dixon, and basically scouted for them. So that was again, that's what I always thought made, we've talked a lot, we've talked a lot about, getting some more events and things where I love the All-Star game. That one week I spend with, 25, 30 other kids that I never would have gotten to know, but also I get to spend it with 6 or 7 colleagues that, we only see each other in the week that we're getting ready to play each other. And in those days, clinics were more in vogue because the computer, you weren't doing stuff this computer, you went to clinics, you networked, we played golf together, we hung out together. I think we all developed a great respect for each other, and that came from the top. It came from the Coach Sams and the Coach Hamptons and the Coach Webers and the longtime coaches, the ones that grew up in that culture. And I think that one of the things that I would love to do, and I talk to young coaches a lot about, is trying to do, those things. And that doesn't mean, again, when we play you, that's for that 1 week, it's, you want to beat them as bad as can be, but that doesn't mean at the same time we can't have the same respect for each other. And going back to, I think I know I can ramble a little bit, but
it's all good, Coach. I'm
one of the things, first of all, I've been very blessed. I mean, to inherit, a program that, that Coach Sam had from, into a really respected program. I was blessed to have, and we still have had, if I pinpoint, clearly you have to have really good players. I mean, and that's where the goes to. There's a great Bear Bryant line. It's the Jimmies and the Joes. That make the difference. But I've also been blessed with a wonderful staff. I mean, we've been very, very uniquely fortunate here with the stability of, it's still on my staff. We have 3 guys that are 25 plus year guys. And then when I first started, with my uncle, Coach Frank, who was here 40 years, and Fred Thayer was here for almost 40 years. And then, of course, Don Weekly's been with me all but one, my offensive line coach. I just believe that, as from a head coaching standpoint, I was very blessed. I mean, so we were able to, the continuity, simple things like how you do you run your spring, how you run your off season. One thing my dad taught me was if you have good coaches, let them coach. That was one of the biggest transitions I had, because in, my last years with Coach Sam, actually from when Coach Hampton left, it's a good story. We had pretty much a defensive-minded staff other than Coach Hampton. When he took the head job at Estero, for 1 year, Coach Sam and I forget who helped him, Coach Weekly, they ran the offense, and all of us were defensive coaches. I was overworking with Coach Frank, and my dad called me in one day as a coach, not a son, and he said, he goes, I got, and he had a persuasive way of telling me, it was kind of like asking me, but telling me what I was going to do. He said, I got some good news and some bad news. Now, the good news part of it was I was fascinated in those days with option football, and Georgia Southern was in the heyday of their bone, they call it, their triple option. They had it in, so I used to pester my dad and Joe. Coach Joe will tell you, I said, get out of the I formation. We got your little pizzazz to we run more spread option, and they would scoff at me. And so when Joe left and a year went by, my dad calls me in. He says, look, he goes, I want to work on some of the flex bone Georgia Southern stuff. He goes, I've set it up for you to go up to Statesboro. And that was when the legendary Irk Russell was there, and Paul Johnson that went on to Navy and Georgia Tech. Spent a week up there in spring and work with him. And I said, well, what's the bad news? He said, well, you're now the offensive coordinator. I said, well, first of all, I kicked and screamed. And then I started thinking, that's really not bad news. He more or less told me, he said, I believe, and it's the greatest thing he ever did for me, because listen, offense to me was taboo. Yeah. We hated those guys over there. We thought all the rules were on their favor. And we were defensive guys, and that rears its ugly head with me every now and then about competitively, but he did it knowing that very possibly one day I'd want to be a head coach. And so that was his way of saying, you're going to learn that side of the ball. So one of the hardest things for me was I was the OC from 89, 90, fall of 90, all the way actually into my first years as head coach. And I always remember the thing my dad would tell me, you got good coaches, let them coach. And of course I was blessed. Coach Rode came over, and we started morphing into some spread with our wing. And I was able to turn it over to Coach Rode. That was one of the hardest things, but the best decisions I made, not just for him, but it allowed me to pull back and oversee the whole program again. And, I always say now, I just try to stay out of the way. Now and then I'll get those wild urges to coach again. And I got good coaches. I got to let them coach. And, I do my coaching in the room. And I think the kids have to know that those assistants have the ability to make decisions and install and do the things and get the respect of those players. And so I try not to be quite as a shadow over them too much on the field. But, again, that's part of that evolving time. And it was hard. It was hard when you call plays for 20 years. And Richie used to laugh because his first couple years, we got to the point where, Richie knew that I was going to interject during the game when I got that bad. So Richie got to the point, and I called him in one time. I apologized to him. I said, look, you got to quit. You got to quit worrying. You got to call the game, and I got to turn you loose. You're a great young coach, and you got great ideas. I said, don't coach scared up there, because I think he kept thinking he wanted to try to please me. So I start getting on the defensive headset more. The less I knew, the better. But it was a big transition for me because I did it for so long, and but again, when you have a great staff and
gotta let them work.
You got to let them go. You got to let them go. You got to let them go. You got to let the kids know that, and for a while I could tell, and I saw that the kids always would kind of defer to me at times because I was too meddling, and so I had to kind of pull away and and do those head coaching duties, as you'll find out here as years. You know, it's that sanctuary between the lines there that you love, those 2 hours. The other parts of the day as a head coach feel too much like a CEO.
Yes, sir. Now, you know, talking about football, you know, and we coming into a situation where I have never seen it before in my life, and you haven't seen it before in your life, and you actually was a coach when I was playing. This is, you know, a hard situation to adjust to because the not knowing. How are you guys, you know, preparing day and day, you know what I'm saying, with what we got going on right here? You're an experienced veteran coach and you've been around the block and we've never seen this. How are you guys?
Now, you know, I got, you know, being, I guess when you do something long enough, you're the old timer, you know, you get, you know, the media reaches out or people reach out and says, you know, how's this going to work out? What are you doing? And I tell them, look, 35 years, you think you've seen it all, but I never did this. Not in the manual. So I'm living this like everybody else. And you know, you think you've seen it all, but you know, something like this, I don't think any of us could have prepared for it. You know, the first thing is, and now it's spanning, you know, I was already sad for last year's seniors. Now football, we were fortunate it didn't affect us last year, you know, so, but I felt terrible for those spring sport athletes and the way those seniors had to finish their school year. So, you know, we went through it and now, you know, your heart goes out to this class because they lost their spring, they lost their summer camps, you know, so it from a football standpoint has way more effect with this group.
Yes.
They're still trying, a lot of them, you know, trying to find their place that want to go to the next level or had a chance to get evaluated. You know, we blessed in Florida, you know, to have spring football where we have, you know, 50, say last spring, I think I had 78 coaches watch us practice, had a couple Division I players and had, you know, that this group didn't get to enjoy that. And so, you know, you could, you know, so your heart goes out to them because, you know, it's now affecting 2 senior classes, you know, last year, this one. And, but, you know, all we can do is take it a day at a time, you know, from a pure football standpoint. Even though we're limited in what we've been able to do, I'm thankful for the kids' sake. You know, they had been in since March doing virtual learning. I mean, they were a little stir crazy, you know, and it was tough in the month of June into around the 4th of July when the spiking of the Florida cases and all the things happening. But when I saw the faces on these kids for that hour and a half that we got to spend with them,
Yes.
So excited, even though you can't do a lot of the things you do in football, you know, with big group activities and the locker room bonding, just in those groups of 20 and just getting a chance to get out. And, you know, a lot of them hadn't seen each other in 4 months. So whatever we can do in a safe environment with safety obviously being first and all the protocols in place, just to get the kids a chance to get, you know, it's far from normalcy, but at least you got to see a little bit of smile on their face and just getting around each other and getting some fresh air. And I don't know what's around the corner. All we can do as coaches is continue along with, you know, people way above us that'll make the decisions is to be prepared for, you know, I've tried to run all the scenarios through my head, you know, of a timeline and how we will do things. And you know, I might have even had a conversation with you. I know we talked one day.
Yeah.
One of the things that, you know, that as a head coach, I immediately pulled back and said, now what do I have to do? You know, again, strictly looking from the football standpoint, what things do I have to do to get us the most ready? Whether we play September 15th, December 15th, whatever date they tell us that we possibly can play, what do I have to do as a head coach to make the accommodations to get us the most prepared for that day? And a couple of things were, you know, that I worried about, you know, as a coach, we always try to, you know, put out all the fires before they start. And one of the things that I was really concerned with and still am is, you know, we lost our greatest time of off season in the spring in the weight room, spring practice. We weren't able to do a full heat acclimation. Kids have been inside. So as we got to, so, you know, there's never a silver lining to a pandemic like this, but one thing that we were able to do in this limited manner was to slowly get them back used to the heat and condition. Right. Because when we were still thinking, we were still, possibly going to start on time, I was really concerned that they wouldn't be in shape to handle the heat. And that became, a major danger to the fact that you got to make sure that, we can keep them safe. Secondly, are we going to have, it's got to be substance over style. Are we going to have to trim our playbook? Because I still believe what we lost in spring is one of the biggest things that somehow we've got to find a way to get into. It's still a game of fundamentals.
Yes.
It's a game of basic safety and fundamentals, from basic tackling to basic things that you do. So if we feel we got to hit the ground running as a head coach, I didn't want to fall into the trap of saying we got to get our whole playbook in, because you can zoom all you want. I mean, the pro athlete, I saw State stop zooming because those guys got sick. You think 16, 17-year-olds going to learn the game over Zoom? We got to be realistic. So we can't get back in August or October or whenever it is and say, okay, here's the whole playbook. We got 3 weeks to get ready. So that's on me. That's on us to say, look, we still got to make sure they're in condition, safety reasons. And you know how it is. If they're not in the best of shape, you're going to fight more nagging injuries than any other thing. You got to do that. You got to get them fundamentally ready. And I've been accused of this anyway. So I told my coach, I said, we may run 1 or 2 plays, but we're not going to. He said, well, coach, that's all you do anyway. You're going to run 40, but Ritzy Road was the greatest at that. He'd have a sheet big, and he'd say, well, you ran 31 buck sweeps. He goes, I don't need 90% of this sheet. We'd laugh, but seriousness, that as a head coach has been my, I've had to try to compartmentalize to get them ready for that first, that I always, the kids will know I have all kinds of stories. And one of my stories every year, I try to relate football to real life. I said, look, it's just like getting ready for, if you're a concert pianist, I said, that's all football is. You learn the material, you practice it. You mess it up, you practice it again. Then you do a dry run rehearsal. That's the day before they can walk through. And then it only matters that final performance. How do you get from A to Z? So for us to get to A to Z to play on that first Friday night, Lord willing, and hoping we do, it's up to me to make sure that we put them in the best position to be successful. And that may be with some accommodation. Well, it will be, because it's not normal. Something as simple as spring ball where you really get your roster set.
Yeah.
For us, our roster, we've got kids we haven't even been able to evaluate, either off a JV team, a freshman team, we're a little blessed this year, if you're ever going to go through this, that we have a pretty good veteran nucleus back. We return a lot of veterans, which should make the transition a little, I think, we'll be a little farther along at the beginning than some people would be. I really sympathize with, a couple new coaches in the area and that are first time, and how the heck do you ever even, it's tough enough gig to start, you're taking over a program and then you got to go through this. I have great sympathy for them. So yeah, every day I kind of think, I try to be proactive and use my experience to say, no, this is going to be different. How do we handle this? This is going to be different. How do we, because at the end of the day, it's a bottom line business from a pure football standpoint. It's my responsibility to have us in the best position.
Yes, sir.
For that first week. And it will be a little different in how you go about it.
Right. So on a funner note, and we'll wrap this thing up off on this one, Coach, you had an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl last year, but
yes,
you weren't the only one there from Fort Myers High. And a kid there, and you had an opportunity to see his dad play. Jai Jeremy actually ran out on the tunnel, you know what I'm saying, because he was part of the commercial. John's been on your sideline a whole bunch. You feel me? How was that experience, Coach? Because I'm literally, that is, I would say, a football player, coach's dream to go, be in a Super Bowl, watch it, be a part of it. How was that?
I can't say how neat it was. The opportunity and the way that came about, and I'm just, again, so blessed and thankful. They had to kind of, the way they presented it at one of the games, was some NFL initiative, and the way they were honoring youth people in youth sports. And I think what happened, Andrew, well, I know what happened, is we were parallel in the NFL with 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, it was our 100th year, just like the NFL. And so I think someone locally, somebody knew somebody and let them know, hey, Fort Myers High School is celebrating their 100th year just like the NFL. And I think that started the ball rolling. Then they did some background and the history of my dad and I at the school over half of those 100 years. And so anyway, the way they did it at the game was because poor Steve Cato, our young AD who used to coach with me, he was given the initiative by Dr. Butts to, hey, you got to get Coach Sam to stay out at halftime. Well, he knows, he goes, oh, that's going to be a bad conversation because, that's the last thing I want to do is be out on the field at halftime. But they didn't want to tell me. It was a surprise. So Steve comes to me and says, Coach, I need you to stay out at halftime of the game. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I got to be a team. And he's like, no. And I could tell Steve was caught in the middle. So he kept pestering me during the week. And so I smelled a rat a little bit. Something's not right. They had a great cover. They said, look, we're getting some kind of, which wasn't really a lie. They said, we're getting some kind of award that's around our 100 years. So I thought maybe the school was getting a key to the city or getting honored by Lee County. Never dreamed. So when I get out there and it's halftime, Dr. Butts walks up to me about a minute on the clock before halftime because he still doesn't think, he's not sure that I'm going to stay out there. We were fortunate to have a nice lead, and he whispers, he comes, I said, Dr. Butts, what are you doing? And he goes, he's not going to come on the sideline. He goes, you're going to stay out here, aren't you? I really need you to. And I said, yes, sir, I'm going to stay. I said, I'll be kicking and screaming, but I'll stay. And next thing I know, I saw Tommy Bohannon. Tommy Bohannon's hanging out by the wall, and I knew Tommy from the All-Star game and followed his career from his days at North and then on into the NFL. And I just kind of knew something was up. But, what an awesome, very humbled and honored to go. I've been fortunate now. I've been to 2 other Super Bowls. I'm a big Steeler fan, as you can probably see in the back.
Man, Coach, turn the camera. Anybody got time for all that?
Oh, no, I'm a big Steeler fan, and I was fortunate to go to 2 of their Super Bowls. And so to be honest with you, and this was not being disrespectful or not honored, but I really wanted to be able to gift the tickets. Originally, my first thoughts were to somebody that was close to me, a coach or somebody that had never gotten to go. And this was not being, I'm to that point, I'm old now, and I'd rather sit there in front of my big recliner and watch the Super Bowl, not fight with crowds. I in my 30s, I went to probably 15 Steeler games, all the playoff games. I just, as you get old, you start wanting, don't want to fight with traffic, but I thought about it. Obviously, I was going to go just out of the, the honor. So then it was, who am I going to take? Who am I going to take with me? And I told my coaches, and I told my, a couple of people, I got more requests, sending me their team logo. Hey, don't forget about me. And I made it up front. I said, I'm going to wait and see who's in the Super Bowl, and I'm going to take somebody that it'll mean a lot to and with me. Well, when it became Kansas City and San Francisco, I don't really have any friends that are big, coaches that are big fans of either of the teams. I had one that was a Baltimore Raven fan. He thought sure he was going when they got knocked out.
Well, I'm a 49er fan, just to let you know. So
There you go. So when I thought of the Sammy, Watkins angle, and I said, you know what? I knew how close he was with Coach Hampton, and I know how the demand will be for Sammy to get tickets.
Right.
I know he would want Coach Hampton there. Heck, people remember he was up when he, got drafted. He was in the green room, and that Coach Hampton, Sammy has made it public to everybody how important he was in his life. So I thought, so I called Coach Hampton. I said, Coach Hampton, I said, are you going to the Super Bowl? And Coach Hampton, he's worse than me. I mean, he explained a 2-second explanation in 5 minutes about how he talked to Sammy. He didn't want to put him on the spot. Sammy's got everybody, family and friends want to come. And I said, but you'd like to go. He said, oh, well, of course I'd like to go. I said, listen. I said, and he knew I got this honor. I said, I'd love for you to go with me. I said, it'll help Sammy out because now he'll know you're going to be there, and he'll now not have to, because I know he would get you a ticket. And so Joe was, very thankful and appreciative. So Coach Hampton and I went. He typical Coach Hampton style. He scurried down around the field and watched warm-ups. He probably, talked a couple ushers into letting him down on the field level.
Never sits still.
After the game, we were going to go over to the locker room, but we went ahead and we got back on the alley. And he texts Sammy. He didn't want to. He goes, I'll be bothering him. I said, just text him. I said, he may read it tomorrow, but text him. He texted him and congratulated Sammy. Sammy texted him in 2 minutes, 2 seconds. He said, Coach, he goes, I'm in, got family and friends. I'm not going out partying tonight. I'm too tired. And he ended up talking to him for about 10 minutes on the phone. And I know how special it was for Coach Hampton. But that is an unbelievable event. Like I said, I've been blessed to go now 3 times. They leave no stone unturned. You had the all-century team that we got to see that night. And then the little break delivering the ball was as other than, I guess, the final outcome of the game was the highlight of the night. And I could see it coming because as they're showing it to us on the Jumbotron, and all of a sudden they show the hallway with those red coats, the maroon coats, the 100-year guys. So I look down and all of a sudden, while you're looking up there at the Jumbotron, they snuck those, that little runway out. And I said, those kids are coming. They're bringing that ball to this red, and that place went banana. But it was a really cool experience. I never thought I'd enjoy a Super Bowl without my team there. But, clearly that night I was a Chiefs fan, cheering for Sammy, and, got to know Sammy a little bit during the All-Star game. And, he just a assuming superstar that everything he gets is well-deserved. He was neat to hang around. He'd sit in the locker room. You'd never know he's in there. He'd just sit and just hang out and, very, very low-key. And like I said, it's great to see him. And he had a big factor in that game, too.
Yes, huge.
That they showed him because it was kind of common knowledge that he was going to be a casualty of the salary cap. And they realized, his playoff run was a big part of that because he was that X factor. And he made a couple big plays in the Super Bowl that, I'm glad they kept him. He gets to go back and get his ring the right way. And then we throw in now, unfortunately, what we're dealing with, another little residual of the climate we're in where he may not get to have that, that perfect ring ceremony. They need to hold that off till the first time they can get a full crowd. Yes. Because that's such a special thing to those Kansas City people.
Coach, I ain't going to hold you much longer because I know you got things. I thank you for tuning in with the Coach's Corner with us, Coach. Appreciate it. Good luck this season. I'll be calling for some help because,
I thank you, Andrew. Like I said, it's great. It's just great whether you went to Fort Myers or wherever.
You already know.
Respect for
yes, sir.
Players, and I love to see them get back into the profession, and you'll be a great addition. I know a lot of the Canterbury's, Coach Turco and I go back a long way. And when he told me, that's an Estero tie.
Yes.
But he told me that, that you were going to be his head coach, I was real happy for you. And I thought it was a really good choice. And you'll do wonders for young kids. And that's what it's all about. And
yes, sir.
Been there and done that. And this area, and you know how valuable a coach can be in your life. And that's what it is. We've all been in sports. So, that I wish you only the best, and anything you ever need, only a phone call away.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach. See ya.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.